Good evening and welcome to Courtside Live, Legal Edition. I'm your host, David Adler, and tonight we're covering one of the most influential negligence cases in American legal history, Palsgraf versus Long Island Railroad Company, decided by the New York Courts of Appeals in 1928. This case may have started with a simple train station accident, but it quickly became one of the most debated tort law decisions ever written. The case involves a moving train, a drop package full of fireworks, a massive explosion, and one major legal question. How far should liability extend when an injury results from a chain reaction of unexpected events? Tonight, our team will break down the facts of this case, explain the legal issue, analyze both the majority and dissenting opinions, and discuss why this case still matters in courts and classrooms today. Let's swing the rock over to Alex at the station for the facts of the case.
Thanks, David. The events of this case took place at a Long Island Railroad station in New York. Helen Palsgraf was standing on the platform after purchasing a ticket and waiting for a train. At the same time, another train had already started moving out of the station when two men suddenly ran toward it, trying to board before it left. One passenger successfully boarded the train without a problem, but the second passenger, who was carrying a small package wrapped in newspaper, appeared unstable while trying to jump aboard. Two railroad guards attempted to help him into the train. One guard reached out from inside the train while another pushed from behind on the platform. During the struggle, the passenger dropped the package into the tracks. What nobody realized at the time was that the package contained fireworks. Seconds later, the fireworks sadly exploded. The explosion caused shockwaves throughout the station and knocked over a heavy weighing scale located many feet away from the incident. The scale struck Helen Palsgraf, causing serious injuries. Ms. Palsgraf then sued the Long Island Railroad Company, arguing that the railroad employees acted negligently and caused her injuries. But the railroad argued that her injuries were too remote and unforeseeable for them to be legally responsible. Now let's move back to the legal issue at the center of the case. Back to the studio.
Thank you. Let's break down the case using IRAC. Starting with the issue, the court had to decide, did Long Island Railroad owe a legal duty to Helen Palsgraf even though her injuries resulted from a highly unusual event? To put this more simply, could they have reasonably predicted that helping someone board a train would injure a woman standing far away? That leads us to the rule. To win a negligence case, you need to prove four things: duty of care, breach of duty,
Causation,
and damage. But in this case, the most important elements were duty and foreseeability. Judge Cardozo put it perfectly. The risk reasonably to be perceived defines the duty to be obeyed. To put it simple, if you don't see it coming, you can't be held responsible. Moving to the application now. The court examined what railroad employee actually knew at the time. The package looked harmless, it was wrapped in newspaper, and there was nothing suggesting it contained fireworks or explosion. Miss Palsgraf was only standing many feet away where the package fell. Because of that, Cardozo believed that the railroad's employee could not reasonably foresee that helping a passenger board a train would lead to an explosion that would injure someone far down the platform. Finally, the conclusion. The court ruled in favor of Long Island Railroad Company. The majority concluded that because Miss Palsgraf's injuries were so unforeseeable, the railroad did not owe her a legal duty, meaning there's no negligence liability. Not everyone agreed though, so let's send it over to our analyst for the full breakdown.
Thank you, Luke. The majority opinion was written by Chief Judge Benjamin Cardozo, and his analysis focused heavily on the idea of proximate cause. The court acknowledged that the railroad guards may have acted carelessly while helping the passenger board the train, proving cause and effect. However, Cardozo emphasized that the package looked completely harmless. It was small, wrapped in newspaper, and gave no indication that it contained fireworks or explosives. In addition, Mrs. Palsgraf was standing far away from the original incident. According to Cardozo, the railroad employees could not reasonably foresee that helping a passenger board a train would ultimately cause an explosion that injured someone standing at the opposite end of the platform. Because of the injuries were unforeseeable, the Cardozo concluded that the railroad did not owe Mrs. Palsgraf a legal duty. Instead, the negligence must involve a foreseeable risk, proving proximate cause to the potential injuries inflicted to Mrs. Palsgraf. In sports terms, Cardozo's argument is kind of like this. Imagine a baseball player accidentally throws a bat into the crowd. The bat hits a railing, and the railing knocks over a camera, and then the camera somehow injures someone outside of the stadium parking lot. Even though the events are technically connected, Cardozo would argue the final injury was simply too remote and unpredictable to create legal liability. As a result, the court ruled in favor of Long Island Railroad Company and dismissed Mrs. Palsgraf's claims. But of course, not every judge agreed with that reasoning. Let's now head over to our dissent analysis.
Thank you. Judge Edgers had a strong disagreement with the majority's opinion, and he went on to write one of the most famous dissents in legal history. He believed that everyone has a duty to uphold in society to avoid reckless actions that could potentially hurt other people. Instead of focusing on the railroad's duty to Mrs. Palsgraf, he focused on what he thought the real question should have been: proximate cause. In Judge Andrews' opinion, he argued that when someone acts negligently, they're directly responsible for the consequences that occur, regardless if the injury or consequences were hard to predict or unusual. The explosion directly caused Mrs. Palsgraf's injuries, according to him, and the chain of events happened close enough together that the case should have gone to the jury to decide. His explanation is that careless actions, even small ones, can create a ripple effect causing a chain reaction. Some people like to call this a butterfly effect. The disagreement that ensued between Cardozo and Andrews became incredibly important in history because it affected how courts think about negligence even today. The Palsgraf versus Long Island Railroad case is a major case discussed across the U.S. in regards to tort law. It helped define concepts like foreseeability, duty of care, proximate cause, and scope of liability. And even today, courts still discuss whether Cardozo's narrow approach or Andrews' broader approach is is more appropriate for the scenario. The case connects to modern legal issues that involve accidents, corporate liability, responsibility, and negligence claims where unexpected consequences are the result. Palsgraf versus Long Island Railroad still remains one of the greatest examples of how judges can interpret the exact same facts and conclude with completely different opinions. Back to the studio.
Thank you. Palsgraf versus Long Island Railroad Company remains one of the most important negligence cases in American legal history. What began as a train station accident quickly evolved into a historic debate about duty, foreseeability, and how far legal responsibility should extend. The majority opinion written by Cardoza helped establish the modern foreseeability test used in negligence law today. Meanwhile, Andrew's dissent continues influencing legal scholars and courts nearly a century later. This case demonstrates how an unexpected moment can completely reshape American law. Thank you for watching Courtside Live, Legal Edition.